July, and if you're in a garden slump, you're dealing with pests, disease in your garden, tons of weeds, then this is a video for you. Welcome to my backyard garden, guys. Today we're going to be going through a July garden tour. If you're new here, my name is Marsha. I'm the Black Thumb Gardener. I live in Ontario, Canada, USDA Zone 5B, and welcome to my backyard garden. I have a small backyard garden. I have about 7 raised beds and a GreenStalk. We're gonna tour the raised beds first, and then I'll walk you through my back flower garden, and then we're gonna look at some other blooms around the garden. So this is the entrance to my raised bed garden, and I built this barrier this year and added 3 new raised beds. Originally I had 2 beds that my husband had built me a few years back, and these are amazing because they're really tall and it's so easy to garden in these beds, and they're filled to the top with soil. Yes, I did that. And then over here I have a Vago, I think this is a 9-foot bed. So I have a Vago 9-foot bed. I have these 2 raised beds, and then I have these 3 raised beds that I added this year. If you're interested in learning how I built these raised beds, I'll add the video in the link below. So we're gonna come to the first bed and check out what's going on here. Sorry, the sun is like beating down, so I'll come to the other side. So we're gonna check out this first bed and see what's going on here. So this bed, I planted a bunch of beans and corn, and I do have cucumbers on the end. But what I also have here is celery. I had so many celery plants that I started from seed that I just spread them throughout the entire garden. I did harvest some of them, and I shared that, I think, in one of my videos, but I still have tons left in the garden. And for me, I find celery is one of those plants you can leave in the garden until you're ready to use it, because they're still doing really well. I haven't had celery bolt in my garden at all in any year, so this is a great plant if you just want to keep celery in the garden and harvest it when you want to. The stalks are still good, they're crispy, and I probably won't harvest these until the fall. Now over here we have the beans that we planted together. They're looking really good, but I don't have any beans yet. Most of my spring crops really last until the early summer. I usually just wait, get rid of all of my spring crops, and then I put in my summer crops. So some of you have already harvested cucumbers, beans, corn, things like that. I don't do that as a northern gardener. I tend to flip my beds a little bit later. So you're gonna see me harvesting a lot of my summer crops in late summer, and that's fine by me. I know a lot of northern gardeners will put in all of their cucumbers, their squash plants, pumpkins, things like that in early spring. And I just find that the weather is too cold and unpredictable in early spring. So I just like to wait till my spring crops are out, and then I put in my summer crops, and that usually works for me. And because I'm working with a small space, it also helps to optimize a garden and manage all of my beds, because I just don't have space to put in summer crops during spring crop season. It just doesn't make sense for me. So that's what I do in my garden. Let me know in the comments if you do that as well, or you put in a lot of your summer crops in your spring garden. Okay, back to this bed. So I have beans in this bed. I have corn I started from seed. The Japanese beetles are here, and so they've been gnawing at only this corn plant. So something is going on with this one, and the other ones have come up nicely. I have cucumbers here that are just starting to flower. No cucumbers yet, and that's fine by me because I personally want cucumbers when my tomatoes are coming in. So I've just been kind of wrapping this around the trellis so they grow up. There are 4 cucumber plants here. And then in this bed, I also have some carrots. These are the French carrots. They're the round ones. I can't remember the name of it. And I wonder if I have a tag. Do I have a tag? No, I don't have a tag. Anyways, these are French carrots that really need to be thinned out. I just haven't gotten to that point yet, but this is a size where you want to go and thin out your carrots now. So I will be doing that later on today. I do have a pumpkin here, and I'm hoping that it trails down, and I want it to trail down and around so that it has space. And then over here I have some parsley, the cucumber plant, and then more celery. So I have 2 celery plants in this bed, one here and one over there. And then on the other side, I do have, looks like weeds, but I do have ginger along the side of this bed. So that's interesting. I am not sure how these other plants are going to work with the ginger. This is my first time putting ginger in a raised bed. I usually like to put ginger in a separate container, but everything seems to be doing okay, so I'm going to leave it as it is and let you know how that works. Moving on to the second raised bed, basically this is all I have in the bed. So beans, corn, carrots, cucumber, 2 celery plants, some ginger, and I think I have some green onions somewhere along here. In the second bed now, I have the remnants of spring still. So I have 2 kale plants. Oops, I don't know if you can see, this is red boar kale, and then this is lacinato kale. And yes, the cabbage moth butterflies are attacking it, but I've been kind of picking them off as I need to, and it's been looking okay so far. This kale plant will last the entire summer. I do have kale started in the seedling room. I'm not going to plant that until later on in the summer. I also have a cilantro plant that has gone to seed, and I personally let my cilantro plant go to seed because these things here, the flowers, will eventually turn into these little seed pods, and then this will dry out and I'll collect the seed pods, and I just keep reusing cilantro I've harvested from the garden every year. And also these little flowers, they bring in beneficial insects, and this is kind of what you want in your garden. Carrots are great for that, cilantro is great for that. Love it. Look at that. Isn't it gorgeous? So in this bed, I also have a lot of my squash plants, and I personally like to keep my squash plants in one section, so when I'm ready to pull them out, they just kind of go out at the same time. So in here, I have my cilantro, the 2 kale plants, and then planted in between, I have, I think this is a squash plant, Yuki. We'll come around. What is this called? Yeah, this is Yuki red curry. So this is a popular squash plant. This hasn't really done anything. I planted this probably a few weeks back, so it's still growing. I tucked in a few bean seedlings in between because I figured, you know, might as well tuck in some beans. I do have onions along the side, and this is from my spring garden. And you can see that one of these onions are ready. When the onion is ready, it'll start to flop over like that. So this red onion is ready to pull. And then here I have a zucchini plant. This is a container zucchini. It's called Astia zucchini, I think it's called. And look, more celery. I have another celery. I have 2 celery plants in this bed as well. One in the middle that's from the spring garden, and another one over here on the end. I really should pull these 2 to give this more space. I will be planting some pole beans on the end here and have it run up the trellis. And I think I planted some nasturtiums. I had these beautiful nasturtiums in the spring and they just started looking bad and I pulled it out. So you'll notice throughout the garden, I have a lot of seedlings that are for later on in the summer to bloom. So this is some nasturtium. Oh, and I have some beets in the middle. This is from my spring garden. It didn't do well because all the brassicas covered it, so I've just left it for now. Okay, the next bed, the third bed in the row, is my tomato bed. There are 3 tomatoes here. Probably a little too much, but I just wanted to pack it all in. And guess what we have here again? Another celery plant. So what do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is celery plant number 5, and there's more. Can you believe that? And this one is doing really well. So I have 3 tomatoes in this bed, and you can see none of them are red. And some of these tomatoes are struggling, the plants, and I don't know what's going on. I think I have blight in my 3rd tomato plant, but it is what it is. This is what happens in the garden. So these 2 plants right here are plum regale. I have 6 Roma tomato plants in the garden because I intend to make a lot of pasta sauce this year. So I wanted to pack the garden with a lot of Roma tomatoes, and I'm growing pretty much determinate tomatoes. So every tomato you're gonna see right now is going to be a determinate tomato. Again, I just wanted control. I wanted my harvest all at the same time. I have 1 indeterminate tomato plant in the garden, and that's also a Roma tomato. So lots of pasta sauce in the future. Planted underneath the tomato plants, I have another cilantro plant that looks like it's going to seed, so I'm gonna let that one go. And along the side, I have onions. So this year I have an allium bed, but I also have alliums tucked in throughout the garden. I haven't done an onion harvest yet, and I still have time. These are still growing. So you can see the plum tomatoes, they're all coming in now. They're just kind of bulking up. The plant is still flowering right now. But so far, everything is looking good in this bed. The only problem I have is in this last bed. I think this plant experienced blight at the beginning of the season, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. Look at these leaves. These leaves are curled, they're crispy. Something's going on with this plant. This is one of 2 non-plum tomatoes. This is called Manitoba, and it's supposed to be an early tomato plant. I think this plant is just struggling. It doesn't have blossom end rot, thank goodness. It's getting consistent water through the irrigation. It's just dealing with blight. This is my first year growing Manitoba. I don't think I'm gonna grow it again. It's just not doing well in the garden. Underplanted the tomatoes, I also have some marigolds. This is my favorite marigold this year. It's called strawberry blonde marigold, and it goes from like a dark orange into this light color. It's gorgeous. And then underneath that I have sage, some parsley over there, and then I started some more lettuce from seed. This is where we had our first harvest of tomatoes, and I just replanted it with some lettuce. Okay, coming around the side over here, we have another tomato bed. I have some calendula that I planted on the side. And these are both, I think so. I think these are plum tomatoes. This one is definitely a plum tomato. You can see that this is a plum tomato. In the front, I have peppers. I don't know how your peppers are doing this season, but this is not a good pepper year for me, and usually I have an amazing pepper year. This ain't it. They're just since the spring, they're just not doing well. So I've kind of written off peppers for this year, but I'm keeping the plants. I'm letting them do their thing. I'm not really hopeful. So these peppers, I don't know, they struggled from the beginning. I don't know what it is. And I have 2 beds with peppers, and both beds are just not doing well. I also had underplanted peppers in this bed, and I ended up pulling some of them just because they weren't doing well, and that's because they weren't getting enough sun, because this is all shade, right, because of the plants. So that was a bad idea. I should have put them in one of the other beds that got more sun. But yeah, these are not doing well. I have more marigolds and some oregano and some sage. This looks like a flea beetle. What is this? And I also have a zinnia that I just planted at the back just to attract some more pollinators. But look how gorgeous this is. I think, is this a cactus? No, I can't remember which zinnia this is, but look how gorgeous that is. And I do have a lot of basil, so every tomato plant that I'm talking about today is underplanted with basil. And I've been harvesting off this basil for pesto all season, and it just keeps growing. So this tomato plant does not look like a plum tomato, and I thought it was. What is this? Oh, right. This is Tasty Lee. This is a new variety to West Coast Seeds. It's not a plum tomato. It's I guess you can say it's a slicing tomato, but look at this. It's looking good. I forgot. I thought this one was a plum, but it's not. Oh well. Okay. Moving forward, 2 more tomato plants. This is a very tall raised bed. The height of this raised bed, I don't know if you can see, but it's literally to my waist. That's how tall it is. And it's so nice gardening in these beds because I don't have to bend. So over here, I have some more pepper plants that are not doing as well. These are doing better than the ones that are over here, but they're not progressed as far as I would like them to be right now. I also have 2 that I transplanted here that were in a different section. These are paprika peppers, and you can make paprika seasoning from these peppers, but I don't know if I'm gonna get paprika from them this year, so we'll see how that goes. And I think I tucked in a bean. Did I tuck in a bean plant here? I think I did. So this is a cherry tomato, and this is the only cherry tomato that I have in my garden, and it's already starting to produce. And then over here, over here I have another plum tomato, of course. And then in between, I do have that strawberry blonde marigold. I have some more basil that's looking really good. And in the back, I have some carrots. And these carrots we thin together, but we're gonna be harvesting them probably in August. So let me pick some. These have been really good. They're pretty tasty. What's the variety called? It's called Cherry Falls, and it's from a seed company called Vessies, and they're in the east coast of Canada. I think they're from Prince Edward Island, which is a beautiful province to visit if you ever get the opportunity. So this has been producing so far, and it's nice to finally have some red cherry tomatoes. There we go. Get this one. Sure. My little harvest for the day. And then we're going to keep going. I have another parsley plant. So I also have herbs throughout the garden: parsley, oregano, sage. I haven't really harvested the sage, but parsley, oregano, I've definitely done a harvest video on that, and I'll also link that video below. So moving forward, we have some containers I just plucked here. These are potato containers. This was an experiment. I had potatoes that I picked up from the grocery store. It was like a $2 bag from, I think it was Freshco, and the brand is Compliments. And the potatoes were starting to chit, so I decided to just stick it into the ground as an experiment. This is what it's doing right now. These potato plants were started at the same time. This is seed potato. This is not seed potato. This took forever to grow. So I'm letting this do its thing. This is going to be harvested soon, but you can see the difference in growth from seed potato to grocery store potato. And then here I have this is a flower container. I had some cosmos, some beautiful orange cosmos here previously. I took them out because they were looking bad, and then I had zinnias that were growing underneath it, and then now I planted some Mexican sunflowers I started from seed. I also have some eucalyptus there that I've kind of just tucked in throughout the garden. Okay, this is the next raised bed in this is kind of like a raised bed section, and we're going to start here. This is the only indeterminate tomato in the garden, and this is a plum tomato, of course. This is Posano by West Coast Seeds. Look how gorgeous that is. Look how they fall. Just absolutely gorgeous. So I've been working them up this trellis that wraps around, and they have just been hanging beautifully. They look so gorgeous. And then I just created a disaster in this bed. So I do have an alyssum on the end. I had alyssum here last year, and I love the look, how it was cascading over the bed. And I love it again this year. And you have like little bees that are hovering. You can't see it. I don't know if you can see that little bee. But I just love to hover over the flowers, and they smell amazing. Now I've been debating pulling this out and then putting in a new alyssum plant for the fall, but I keep seeing bees, flies, all these insects all over it, and I'm hesitant to pull it out. But I really want to put in a peach alyssum for the fall. Let me know in the comments if I should do that. But over here I have what is a new plant to me this year. This is a ground cherry plant, and I didn't start this from seed. I picked this up at the garden center, and it has just been spreading and spreading and spreading and kind of taking over the space. And I feel like I'm going to pull this one out because I do have watermelon and cantaloupe in this bed that really needs the light, and I think this plant is hampering it. But what's been fun has been going in every day and pulling out a ground cherry to eat. Now this one got eaten by the ants, you can see. But yeah, this plant this was an experiment this year. I didn't know what I was doing, and I thought, I'd try something new. It's cool, it's okay. The cherries are pretty cool to eat, but honestly, I think this is something that was nice to do, but time to rip it out. So this bed was my allium bed, and it still is. I just harvested some garlic from this bed, but I still have a ton of onions here. Actually, I have onions, leeks, and some shallots here. I don't know which is which because my labeling was a little bit scattered near the end when I was planting these. So when we do an allium harvest, we'll just see what we get. I also have some lacinato kale here and some dill that's gone to seed already. But I just love the flowers, so I'm just keeping them here. Look at that. I love dill flowers. I also have some other flowers on the end. This is Nigella. So this bed is empty. I did start some lettuce seedlings. So I do have some coastal star. I started along the side when I pulled out the garlic. I'm going to plant some carrots, some beets, and then I'm going to plant all the brassicas in this bed and pull this out, of course. Oh, and back here I do have a callaloo plant. And then beside it, I'm just going to tuck in over. This is a raspberry plant, and I've been harvesting off of this plant almost every day. I thought I saw a red one yesterday. It must have gotten eaten. Yeah, something keeps coming in and eating it and then dumping them over here. But I do have a red one. I don't know where it went. I think it probably got eaten. And then over here, I have a blueberry plant. I think, oh my gosh, there's a blueberry ready. Look. Oh my gosh, look at that. The birds haven't found this plant yet. So yeah, blueberries are coming in. Okay, the light is starting to come in, so I'm gonna go through the back garden. I haven't gone through the GreenStalk yet, but I'll get to that in a minute. So this back garden is literally one long strip that goes all the way down, and it backs onto the raised bed garden. And I have a hosta that I divided here that's, you know, recovering from the trauma I put it through. And this is kind of a shade area. You wouldn't believe it, but I have a dahlia in here. I have some hollyhocks in here that's growing. I have some foxgloves in here, but it's doing nothing and it's really not getting a lot of sun. And then this is pretty much my peony patch. So these were all peonies that grew this season, and I added a new one here from the peony show that I went to. And I'm just letting this continue to get some sunlight, continue to grow, and then later in the season I'll cut it back. I usually just let my peony plants continue to get some sun and just continue to grow throughout the season. Around the front, I do have some nepeta that's lining the bed that I've already cut back. A lot of my perennials I've cut back already, so they're starting to put on more size, and then they'll do another flush of blooms later on in the season. Over here, my clematis are finally blooming. This is one I picked up from, I think it was Lowe's at the time. Gorgeous. I have another clematis over here. This one is a Proven Winners clematis, and I'll put the name below. This clematis, it just has no space, and I put a little, you know, stopper there so that it has something to drop onto, but this is not enough anymore for this clematis. It needs to grow taller, and I just don't have any space. So maybe next year I'll add some pins to the walls, and maybe I'll let it grow sideways along the wall. And then below it, I have some echinacea. I started these from seed. I started these from seed probably about 4 years ago now, and I left it in the garden, and it comes up on its own every single year. And this is one of the ways you can build your garden from seed, growing perennials, perennial flowers, and just letting them continue to reseed in the garden. So these are just starting to come in. Gorgeous. Below that, I have some delphinium. I'll put the name below, but they're gorgeous. Look at them. This is my favorite. I think it's called Pink something. These two were picked up from Costco. And then below that I have a Shasta daisy. And then over here I have, these are black-eyed Susan that they haven't come in yet, and they will probably in August. And then we have some daylilies here. These are my roses, and the Japanese beetles have arrived, and I don't know if you're dealing with Japanese beetles, but they're disgusting and they love to eat at the rose leaves. So I'm glad I did a good trim back after they were blooming, and the Japanese beetles came right after that. Oh, look at that. These. And then coming along here, nothing is really happening in this section. Again, the roses I trimmed back right before the Japanese beetles came, and they're starting to grow again, and they're going to be re-blooming soon. Hopefully by then the Japanese beetles are gone. And then below that I have another Shasta daisies, and then I have some millennial, I think this is millennial alliums from Proven Winners that are just starting to bloom. And then I have a foxglove here I started from seed that's just come up. It looks gorgeous. And then over here I have just a hydrangea. I don't have hydrangeas in my garden. My husband hates hydrangeas, so I've really tried to limit the hydrangeas in my garden, but I did stick one in. Don't tell him. And that's pretty much the back garden. Outside of flowers, I have removed, here I had some sweet peas and some anemones and ranunculus in this container. So I just swapped it out and dumped a whole bunch of seeds in here. So I put in zinnias, I put in cosmos, and maybe some other flowers. And over here it's the same thing. I have some cosmos, some zinnias, so they're slowly coming up, and that will be kind of my late summer display of flowers. So now's the time when I usually, in July, I rip out a lot of my spring flowers, my anemones, ranunculus, cosmos. That's usually what I grow in the spring. And then I put in my zinnias, more cosmos, and any other flowers that I want. So you'll see throughout the garden, I've started a ton of flowers from seed. So my side flower gardens are not really doing anything. This was Baptisia that bloomed in the spring. I also have some GM that I've cut back that's starting to grow. This one is gonna grow. This is a Rose of Sharon that's just starting to put on some size. So this will be blooming probably in the next garden update in August. And I do have some petunias that I've planted at the bottom, but this is the highlight of this section. This is a poppy that I started from seed, and I think it's going bad, but look at this. This plant was suffering. It had a ton of aphids on the leaves, and I had to spray this one down. It just didn't do well. Then eventually I had to stake it after a storm. This plant is going to be done soon, but I'm just letting it bloom out because look at the blooms. I think this is purple peony poppy. I think that's the name. I think do I have a tag? I'm really bad at putting the tags here when I should. On the other side, I don't really have anything going on here either. I do have this blue spruce. It's looking really nice, and this is a dappled willow, but other than that, I have another rose, a climbing rose plant. Again, none of my roses are blooming. I don't want my roses blooming when the Japanese beetles are out because they just destroy them and I get frustrated. So I just tend to trim my roses, and that helps to reduce the Japanese beetles. My containers are just looking fantastic. I trimmed this back a couple weeks ago, so it's just starting to grow back. It was like, whew, you couldn't even see the other plants that were inside. There are a ton of things in here, but you just can't see it because this plant, and this is one plant doing all of this. And then this coleus, I don't know what the name of this coleus is. I picked it up at one of the garden centers. It is gorgeous. I love this coleus. I don't know what the name is, but look at that. Oh, I picked this up at Costco. Actually, I didn't pick this up at the garden center. You know, Costco has 6-pack containers, and I saw this and I picked up a 6-pack. Look at this. Costco, guys. Costco. Gorgeous. I'm gonna come up onto the deck, but first I'm gonna show you this. This is what I do with Japanese beetles. So every day I have to come out and get some soapy water, and then I just dump the Japanese beetles in here, and that's what I've been doing. And then I just kind of dump it into the garden over there. Yeah. And I do need a new time container. All right, up here we have my this is my tea garden, and nothing's really happening. I pulled out a calendula, and I pulled out the bachelor's buttons and the chamomile from the garden. It wasn't really looking good, and it was infested with aphids, so I removed it. I started some new seeds of bachelor's buttons and chamomile that will make it to the end of the season. And then I've just trimmed back the mint and some of the other plants that are in here. Just deadhead them and just, you know, keep them looking fresh. However, in here I do have a roselle or hibiscus plant right here. You wouldn't even know it. You think it's a mint plant, but no, this is a hibiscus, and it's growing in the middle of it. I don't know if this is gonna make it to the end of the season. I'm gonna stake this soon, but it's doing its thing. I had 3 of them and 2 of them died. And then down here, I made this little container, and this is some geraniums I started from seed, along with some dichondra silver falls I planted at the side. Okay, we're gonna go through the GreenStalk, and I'm gonna say this is probably gonna be an unpopular opinion, but next year I am not growing strawberries in my GreenStalk, and I'm even debating growing strawberries at all because the Japanese beetles have completely destroyed this plant. We might even find a few. So what they're doing is skeletonizing the leaves. So this plant, the way these leaves are, that was what was happening throughout the entire strawberry plant. And I've cut back a ton of leaves. They seem to like the strawberries that I started from seed. I did get a strawberry harvest, but look at this. And the thing is that when you see these leaves, you really have to pull them back because they will continue to attack the plant, because when they skeletonize the leaves, it leaves a scent and it brings more Japanese beetles. So you really have to kind of pull these leaves off. And that's what I've been doing. I've just been cutting back these leaves heavily. The second layer are ones from last year, and I think I picked a couple up from the garden center this year as well. This is not looking too bad. It's just the ones I started from seed that are doing really poorly. But even still, I think I might just put these in raised beds next year at the end of the season. Actually, for next year, I just don't want them in the GreenStalk anymore. Down here, the rest of the GreenStalk is looking really good. I still have some onions at the bottom that I need to pull out. I have some empty pockets I need to fill. So I have a lot of herbs like parsley still in here. And I also have a mini tomato that's growing nicely. It has some flowers. I don't think it's fruited yet. No, I don't think so, but it's growing, it's doing its thing. It's probably gonna fall over, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I have some lettuce I've started from seed again. When I do garden tours, I always forget about my side garden, and it's not really a side garden, it's just my side container window display. And you don't really see this unless you're walking to the backyard. So this is my window display. In the spring, I had a beautiful tulip display, and now I've replaced it with some petunias. Gorgeous. And then down here in this single window, I try to replicate the theme, but I had some extra geraniums I started from seeds, so I just tucked them in here. That's the end of our tour for today. Thank you for watching this July garden tour, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.